Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Pro Live DFS live stream here on Fantasy Alarm. I'm John Apema, as always, with James Grande, here to break down Friday's 14-game slate. I don't know if you can hear in my background, but it's currently thunder and lightning up here in
Oh
Massachusetts,
yeah.
which
Oh
is
yeah.
pretty much the case for today's slate, up and down sort of the coast and sort of central United States as well. It's going to be a real rough weather slate here, James.
Yeah, man, I hate the weather. We were just talking about NBA season. There's no weather concerns unless we have some leaky roofs.
Yeah.
But other than that, man, 14 games and it seems like all of them have some weather concerns.
Yeah, we have Toronto, New York has potential for some delay with the rain up the coast. Miami, Washington, anytime there's any sort of rain in the area down in Washington, we have to worry about the Nats calling the game, whether or not it's raining at all anyways, but it actually is raining there, so be careful there with some delays and or postponements there. Chicago Cubs versus the Pirates, another game that's got some rain in the area, and Baltimore, Cleveland, some top pitchers in these games as well, all going to be affected by rain, and the Giants and Reds. So, if you look at the top of today's slate, Carrasco, Scherzer, Hamels, all those guys are going to deal with some weather concerns today, make some pretty risky choices.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to navigate, especially in cash games, and this is something I touched upon with Howard on Wednesday's stream as my dogs go crazy in the background. It's just so risky playing cash this late in the season, and just we don't know what managers are thinking in terms of pitch counts and so forth. And now we have to deal with all this weather. Both Scherzer and Carrasco are clearly the top two options on this slate, and both are in horrible weather spots.
Yeah, I mean, for me, all geared up to use Carrasco against Baltimore in hopes that save a little bit of extra money. Scherzer's being priced so high up there today. But I mean, yeah, it might be even the point where now those two guys are going to be contrarian because of the weather. I really like Cole Hamels the way he has been pitching, but again, there's weather concerns in that games. I think for me, the top pitcher, at least in GPPs, might be Jack Flaherty versus the Brewers. A team that he's dominated this year, 22 strikeouts in 12 innings and 2 starts against them. I know the Brewers lineup can be scary, but it's the safest of really the top options today.
Yeah, and the thing about Flaherty is, like you mentioned, the strikeout upside he's shown against the Brewers already this year. Just look at his last 5 starts. 9 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts, 8 strikeouts, 9 strikeouts. So, I'm almost willing to, with all the concerns we have everywhere else, maybe even deploy him in cash. He's been better. He's won 2 in a row. So, obviously we get that bonus as well. So just based on where we sit, we're just letting the slate dictate our plays here. He could potentially be the top cash game option when it's all said and done, just because can you trust the weather in Cleveland, and can you trust the weather in Washington as well?
Right. And you think of the other top priced option, or at least on DraftKings and FanDuel, Charlie Morton, really good ballpark switch there in Oakland. But the A's are one of the hottest teams in baseball right now. He faced them already this season, and he only lasted 4 1/3 innings, gave up 3 runs. That's kind of a tough matchup. The way they're playing, do you want to spend up that much money? You go down a little bit lower, maybe Walker Buehler versus Seattle is somewhere where you want to go. Does that have any interest in you?
Yeah, they haven't been the same offense as we saw them earlier in the year. But again, like I mentioned, managers, I know Buehler went 7 innings his last time out, and 2 of his last 3 starts, he's thrown over 100 pitches. But the 2 starts, the one wedged in between those and the one before it, he only threw 5 1/3 and 4 2/3. And that could be something that we see Dave Roberts do. Obviously, we have the advantage of him pitching in an American League park, so he won't be pulled to be pinch hit, which is nice. But we still have to factor in that Dave Roberts is his manager, and that's something that I will forever, keep tabs of as long as Roberts is managing there, because at any point in the game, if he doesn't like something he sees, he could pull his starter. So like Buehler's fine for tournaments, but I would never roster him in a cash game ever.
That's fair. Moving down to the middle tier, there's some interesting guys I think here as well. Kyle Gibson versus Detroit. I kind of like him at his price tag. And I'd rather play Cole Hamels at 8,700 on DraftKings. But like you said, there were some weather concerns there. Detroit's a terrible offense against right-handed pitching. Gibson's faced them twice this season. He's got a 2.77 ERA. He's got a career K per 9 rate going on right now as well. So I think him maybe at 8,500, somewhat safe on this slate. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, he's fine. The middle tier is bleak. I think spending down into the 7Ks and 6Ks would be a better approach almost. I think there's some crazy, intriguing names. I know you love James Shields always. You're a James Shields enthusiast.
I've just given up on denying James Shields.
Right.
He's going to go 7. He's going to give up 3 or 4 runs. He's going to strike out 5 or 6. But ultimately, that's a production that is equaling or exceeding value at his price tag. So, and today he gets, to face the Royals, who are one of the league's worst offenses regardless. So, yeah, I'm done fighting James Shields. Earlier this year, I was always talking about stacking against them, and it never came through. I mean, it was just, 2 starts? His last start, 7 innings, 2 earned against Cleveland. I mean, yep, I'm done fighting it. I'll start him against Kansas City tonight, no problems.
I'm with you. I'm with you, and that's why I think it's like a nice approach to drop down to this tier. How about, okay, is this not the Robbie Ray that we saw last year, but 7.6K? I know San Diego is a really good team against left-handed pitching. And I'm absolutely not denying that fact. And they got to him in a start earlier this year where Ray only lasted 4 1/3, and he gave up 3 bombs. And we're going to name some Padres hitters that we like, and that's, and they're in a really good spot. But he's way better on the road. 7.18 ERA at home, 2.70 on the road. He's pitching in San Diego. In 40 innings on the road, he's allowed 1 home run compared to 12 in 36 home innings. So I think that's some upside. Plus the strikeouts, which were obviously Robbie's, which was why we loved him coming into the season so much. 6.8, 6.6 his last 4 games. So they're on the rise.
11.9 K per 9 for him on the year, which is right in line with what we've seen over the last 3 years. The problem is 4.6 walks per 9 is the highest of his career. Yeah. This is a guy that, was never really a control freak. 3.9 walks per 9 last year in what was considered his breakout season. The other thing, in years past when he had the high ERAs, he always had really good peripheral numbers. This year, those peripheral numbers are higher than they've been in the past. So there's not exactly, a bigger ceiling, I guess, for him to improve upon those numbers. 4.83 ERA, but he's got a 4.42 FIP. His Sierra is a little bit better at 3.75, which is in line with his career mark. But, he's not nearly as dominant as he was last year. And like we said, there's some guys in that lineup for San Diego that we definitely like tonight against him. But if you're in GPPs, we know the strikeout upside's there. We know San Diego isn't the greatest of offenses. He gets the ballpark shift. I'm not going to fight you. I'm there. Another mid-tier play, and it's kind of risky because I'm not sure if the game's going to get in, but I actually was in for Lance Lynn tonight.
Yeah, he's been really, really good as a Yankee, and that's a complete shift from what he was in Minnesota because he was atrocious. But Toronto's offense isn't scary. Obviously, the ballpark factor is in play. Anyone at any time can score 10 runs at Yankee Stadium. The ball just tends to fly, and they have lefty power. Granderson, Smoke, Morales. But in a tournament, I can definitely get behind it. The strikeouts have been there. The velocity has been there. He was ending his last 2 games at 96 in his last innings. So, I think Lance Lynn is fine for tournaments. But just touching on the weather, if you are afraid of any of these games, there are 14 games to choose from. You do not have to pick a weather game. There is a game in Texas that has an 11-run total and no weather. So
true. The only weather is it's very hot and very humid.
Yeah, which is bump to bat. So we don't have to do it if you're afraid of weather. These are just, if you have a 20 max and you're throwing a bunch of lineups in, Lance Lynn is a fine GPP play.
And then the final matchup I want to talk about, another game that's relatively safer with weather, is Colorado and Atlanta. They have Kyle Freeland and Sean Newcomb pitching today. Both of them are pitching really well right now. Freeland, $1,000 more. Atlanta's hit well against lefties this year. Colorado's hit well. Colorado not being at home, though, maybe that makes a difference. Do you have any interest in either Freeland or Newcomb?
I don't know. They're both really, really good top 5 offenses against left-handers. And I know it's not in Coors, and that obviously plays a factor in Colorado's statistics. But Atlanta's statistics are no joke against left-handers. Ozzie Albies was amazing earlier in the year, and he's kind of obviously settled down from those numbers, but he's been great all year. I don't have a ton of interest, but it's so wide open on this slate with all the weather and 28 different starters on the GPPs. Yeah, they're fine.
Yep. All right, that's fine. Let's move on to catcher. For me, a guy we just always talk about when it comes to sort of the top catching options. Yadier Molina for me is just always the guy. He hits second in that lineup. The offense is great. The matchup is fine. For me, I think Molina is probably the safest cash games catching option tonight.
Yeah, and we can you can just continuously run him out. Obviously, he wasn't great yesterday, 0 for 5. But the day before, he gives us 7, which is fine from our catcher position. I think I like Salvador Perez just to mix it up at the top tonight. I know James Shields is a very viable option, but Perez, has been pretty good lately. 3 multi-hit games over his last 5, including 2 home runs. He's scoring runs, 2 doubles, so 4 extra base hits over his last 3 games. Salvi's kind of coming into it at the plate. 21 home runs on the year is no joke from the catcher's position either. So I think hitting third, I think Salvi is a nice little pivot off Yadi at the top.
Yeah, that's fine. I even think you can go stay in that game and go the catcher on the opposite there with Narvaez. This is a guy that has just hit all year, hitting 280, 201 the year, 5 home runs. He's had 2 hits in each of his last 2 games, a run score. He homered the other night when we mentioned him. I think that he's just an equally good play. And the Royals are throwing Junis to the mound. He's allowed 26 home runs, second most in baseball. So I think he's a guy that you can target against as well. So I like him as a mid-tier play. And I like Blake Swihart tonight as well, returning into the lineup. He was really starting to come into his own offensively before he ended up landing on the DL. His previous 10 games before getting hurt, he was hitting .324, had 4 doubles and a home run. This is the guy that, again, 3 or 4 years ago was the top catching prospect in baseball because he had offensive upside. We're finally getting to see that. I think this is a spot potentially for him as well.
Yeah, I like both of those guys. And then if you're dropping down even more, I think James McCann is free at 2.7K, homered yesterday. I know he's been pretty atrocious lately, but maybe that home run sparked something. We saw a ton of power from him in the last couple of years, so I think he's just free.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And another guy I like kind of low at $3,000 is Rene Rivera. He came back from the DL last night, or 2 nights ago rather, 2 for 4 with a home run in his return. This is a guy that I've always liked using as left-handed pitching, but this year against right-handed pitching, he's raking .293 with a .911 OPS. Still hitting lefties pretty well, 762 OPS there. So I think Rivera is in play for Anaheim as well.
Yeah, he's probably actually the better play over McCann, but just providing us with both are in play for a punt.
Yep. Let's move on to first base. For me, the top first baseman on this slate is going to be Paul Goldschmidt. Gets a nice matchup against a lefty. I know Lucchesi can be dominant at times with the strikeouts, but he never lasts very long in games. Anyways, Goldschmidt actually has good BVP numbers against him as well. I believe he's homered off him. And he's hitting well against lefties in terms of OPS this year. So for me, Paul Goldschmidt is the top first base option.
Yeah, that's an easy call. But I think, he's been one of the best hitters against southpaws in the last 5 years. He's at the top. He's in the top 5 literally in every category every year. So he's clearly the top option. But the pivot, I think, someone you mentioned, Joey Gallo. I mean, we have the highest total on the board in Texas. There's no weather. Drisamer Despaigne is on the mound, and I don't think he stands a shot in hell here.
Yeah.
Gallo went yard. It's just not a good recipe for success using him tonight.
No, and like you said, you're about to say Gallo homered last night, and in the month of August, he's hitting 314 with 6 homers and 14 RBI. We're getting him at a hot streak right now. The weather's perfect, hitting conditions in Texas against, I guess what I'll say is a trash pitcher. No offense to him, but trash pitcher.
Yeah.
Despaigne. So nope. And like you said, 11 over/under run total in this game. I got to think Gallo is going to do some damage here. First base eligible over on DraftKings. I definitely like him as one of the top priced options. If we're moving down the middle tier, a guy that I love, I think he's cash game, GPP worthy. Jose Abreu, as I mentioned before. Junis, second most home runs allowed this season, and Abreu is starting to heat up like he does every year. Seemingly in the second half, he starts to get hot as he trails his way to another 30-homer, 100 RBI season. This is a guy right now that I think was hitting over 300 during the month of August, hitting 327 with 5 homers and 14 RBI. So I really like him today, and we're getting him kind of priced down a little bit compared to the other guys at the top. At his price tag there at 4,200, really, really good value.
Yeah, he's a lock. He's a lock at that mid tier. He's definitely a top mid tier play, and I think Yonder Alonso is right there with him. If you want to play a GPP and you believe that this game will play, because David Hess is a trash can as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think you put Abreu ahead of Alonso in both formats. But Alonso's just a nice pivot off of Abreu.
Yep, I agree with you there. And then someone that I've really seen kind of a dip in price lately, Matt Olson. I know it's got a tough match against Charlie Morton. I'm not going to argue that, but he's a guy that's got a 4-game hit streak right now. He's got 3 doubles during that stretch. When he gets hot, he gets hot. Gets a lefty-righty matchup. I think Olsen could be an interesting play there at 3,700 on DraftKings.
Yeah, and is it like I feel like his ownership is going to be stupid low. Yeah. I mean, because with the weather at the top, Morton can end up being fairly popular tonight, just based on his success this year, and Carrasco in weather and Scherzer in weather. So not that we really worry about ownership on a 14-game slate, but if these Oakland A's are all going to be under like 5%,
probably.
So you get Olsen, home run upside, multiple home run upside. Obviously, Morton's weird, and he's always been like a reverse splits guy. But I mean, Olsen's always, for the last 2 years has hit like all of his home runs off already. So yeah, I really like him. And how about Tyler Austin?
Versus a lefty. I know he versus a lefty, but
he has like an 800 plus OPS for his career against like he absolutely cannot hit righties, and that's just why he's long term not like a solution anywhere. But he can rake against lefties. He always sprays the ball to right field, and that's because with the tailing fastball, it's perfect for his swing. So I think hitting 5th. I think the Twins have so much value tonight again. Against Matt Boyd.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with it. 877 OPS this year, 5 home runs against lefties, 246 at average, which you can live with. I kind of like that. I had Ryan O'Hearn potentially as a value play tonight, but he's not in the Royals lineup. So let's move on to second base. Where are you looking there tonight?
So at the top, if Washington's weather holds up, I think it's Daniel Murphy, and I mean he's been so fantastic. This is the Daniel Murphy of old. 9-game hit streak. I know we're not seeing the power, but we have seen a little bit more 2 home runs during this hit streak. 965 OPS over his last 10 games. Gets the split advantage against Dan Straley, and I mean, Washington has the third highest implied run total of the slate. So the Nats are going to be really popular. Murphy's going to be really popular, but he's viable for all formats if we can get a report about the weather prior to the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're really going to have to be looking for there, because I do like the Nats today, which is actually kind of interesting. If you look at some of the BVP numbers against Dan Straley, he's actually held his own. Bryce Harper hasn't really hit well against him. Murphy hasn't really hit well against them, but I'm sort of playing those guys tonight based off how they have been hitting of late. Like, both of them are really hot.
Exactly.
The power's starting to come around on Murphy, and I think this is one of the lower price tags that we're going to get him at, too. If he starts hitting for power, he could be up in that 5K range. We're getting him at a value tonight. Javi Baez, I don't think you really need to go in much depth there, but he's always the top play for me, one of the top plays at second base. I think you can always consider him. Ozzie Albies gets the matchup against the lefty tonight, which is his better split. Again, tough lefty Darren Freeland, but not a terrible matchup for him if you want to go that direction. A guy that you talked about the other day and that kind of worked out against lefties is Brian Dozier. He again will get a lefty in Wade LeBlanc tonight. Are you a fan?
Yeah, I love Dozier literally every time he gets a lefty. I mean, the guy has been great against them from 2015 to 2017. He nearly had 1,000 OPS. So, I mean, there's obviously he hasn't been comfortable at the plate all year. And I don't think that this is the real Brian Dozier. I think there's something obviously up with him or was previously. And I think we can start seeing him settle in at the plate, and he gets a lefty here. So yeah, I'm completely fine with Brian Dozier. He's probably going to lead off, he literally could lead off the game with a home run. I think I can't tell you how many times him and Sano last year and the year before just stacked twins against lefties. Both of them hit a home run in the first. It kind of has that feeling again to me. So yeah, I love Dozier, and the price tag is really nice, 4.2K.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the Twins there, and, the guy who essentially went to the Twins for Dozier.
The GOAT.
The GOAT. Logan Forsythe going to lead off tonight. Forsythe is hitting 449 during the month of August, sitting 500 over the last week. Still tremendous value, multiple position eligibility still on DraftKings, which is great. I think you really just need to plug him in there because that's where you're going to get value. We've talked about it a lot of times. DraftKings has been very tough with their pricing lately. I think Forsythe is in a really good spot against the lefty and Matthew Boyd. And then another guy you talked about, David Fletcher, the other night. He's still really cheap, just $3,300 on DraftKings. Second base and third base eligibility. Here, I think he has another good matchup as well.
Yeah, I think Forsythe is top value on the slate, and I don't think it's close. To be honest, 5 for 5 last night, 2 doubles, 2 RBIs, 2 for 3 the night before, 3 RBI. I mean, hitting first against a lefty, I don't think it's really close. But I do like Fletcher as well, and I like you could literally use both of them in a cash game format, one at second and one at third, and you have all the money in the world. I mean, Fletcher gets Drew Hutchinson. I mean,
what is Drew Hutchinson?
Right. And the one thing we haven't seen from Fletcher, which he was very good at in the minors, is power. So I think the power is going to translate to the majors sooner rather than later. And in this hot game in Texas against a really bad pitcher, I think it's sneaky home run upside for David Fletcher tonight. I'm not gonna call it, but I think I'm not gonna be that crazy. But I think you're
gonna mention it.
I'm gonna mention it
call it.
Because if it happens, then you heard it here first,
yeah.
And I'll take all the credit. But if it doesn't, I never said he was absolutely going to.
Yep. We do have a question here from Sox Insider P. Is asking about the Cleveland weather situation tonight. Yeah, it's tough. Like I said, I go to the weatherchannel.com. I use their Weather in Motion app. It shows where all the radar goes. You can kind of time hop, and it kind of projects out over the night. That's what I always look at. I try to figure out if the rain's going to go over the ballpark or not. Right now it's looking okay, like it clears out. So I don't think we're going to get a postponement, but it's a delay to start something that could potentially happen. Again, I recommend, obviously we give up-to-date weather reports over at Fantasy Alarm. Go to the weather tab there. But also there's a lot of awesome tools on the internet that shows a lot of radar and projections out. So easily you can go check those out as well. James, let's move to third base. I wrote him up in the playbook today, and I said, I try not to always just be so predictable. Just by listing out the top players all the time. But I mean, Jose Ramirez at third base, he's just the best play. I said he's a top 3 AL MVP candidate. He's maybe a top 5 to 10 player in baseball. I don't think you can really debate that, right? He's 36 home runs. He could be, the first 40-40 guy who starts really stealing bases at a high rate over the next, month and a half. I mean, yeah, he's $6,000, but I mean, he hasn't let you down. Unlike, Lindor, which we'll talk about at shortstop. Lindor at times you pay for him, he's a dud, and you kind of regret spending that money. Jose Ramirez is pretty much paying off his value every single night. Every single night.
All right. Jose Ramirez goes 40-40, and JD wins the Triple Crown. Who wins the MVP?
That's tough. I think JD will still win it. Maybe because of like a Boston bias, like a big market bias there. But I mean,
that'd be crazy.
We're looking at Jose Ramirez at 36 homers and 27 stolen bases right now.
40.
And the best part is he's like 5'9", like 190 pounds. Like he's not this. Jose Canseco, I think was he like the last 40-40 guy, or maybe it was Barry Bonds or something like that. But those guys were like hulking, figures. And here's, Jose Ramirez not doing anything. Or maybe, did Alfonso Soriano ever get close here? You were a Yankees fan. Did he ever get close?
Yeah, he had 38 home runs and like 42 stolen bases.
Yeah, so I mean, right. But yeah, Ramirez is having just an unbelievable season. And for that reason, you just have to play him. I know you went 0 for 4 last night, but before that, we're looking at DraftKings points. James and I play a lot of DraftKings. 28, 28, and 17. That's 3 of the last 4 games. That's paying off value every night. So homed in all those games. So lock and load Jose Ramirez, top third baseman for me tonight.
Yeah, and I have no problem with that. But the top pivot for me is Nolan Arenado, because he gets a left-hander. And Sean Newcomb has been really good. He's been slightly worse against righties in the average department, but Arenado's numbers against lefties this year, he's hitting 400 with a 568 WOBA, 10 home runs and 120 at-bats. So, I mean, if we could just count up the at-bats, he's hitting 1 per 12 at-bats against lefties. So, if we just check hopefully we're at bat number 12 tonight, and he goes, he goes yard. But I mean, I think either of them are like easily the top 2 plays. I think it's like those 2 at third, and then the field.
Yep. Well, we talked about the field. Our mid-tier play tonight is Villanueva there in San Diego. You touted a little bit of Robbie Ray to start, but this is one of the reasons why we're more interested maybe in stacking against them. First off, Villanueva against lefties this year, hitting .343. He's hit 14 of his 20 home runs this year against left-handed pitching with an 1145 OPS. I think this is just something that you have to, play at mid-tier. Quick weather update. The Rays and Red Sox are going to begin in a delay. They're expected to start, though, around 7:20. So if you have Red Sox or Rays in your lineups today, don't be too worried about the delay. Like I said, it's been pouring here. I live 10 minutes outside the city, but it's already stopped, actually. So it's quick moving storm, but don't be too worried there.
Yeah, when I was touting Robbie Ray earlier, I hope people didn't take it as don't play Padres, because they're in a great spot. And Villanueva is in a great spot, as you mentioned. But it's power. Like, we're looking for the power. I mean, that's what he provides. Just like a couple guys we're going to mention in the outfield too. Like, the Padres, we want the power. I'm just a little nervous playing at home, doing a full stack. I think it could be a little contrarian, and I think you can, have a leg up on the field if they go off, obviously. But yeah, I think Villanueva's in a great spot. A guy we mention all the time gets a lefty. David Freese still just hitting .313 over his last 10 games and gets a lefty. Another, obviously, a weather spot, but if we're interested in GPPs, David Freese could be an obvious choice at third.
We talked about some value, obviously, on DraftKings. Forsythe and Fletcher are third base eligible, but I also think Yolmer Sanchez is in play tonight against Jake Junis. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of Junis. Second most home runs allowed. Sanchez is going to hit second tonight. He's a switch hitter that actually hits better against right-handed pitching. Often, you see switch hitters killing lefties, but he's the other way. So I think he's in a really good spot. He's done a lot of his damage coming from the right side, left side of the plate against righties this year. 260, 741 OPS, and all 7 of his home runs. So I think he can be some nice value at third base tonight.
Yep, and because of the DraftKings, we have like a bunch of nice value down there. So if you don't have the money to spend up on Jose Ramirez and Nolan Arenado because you like players at other positions like Paul Goldschmidt at 5K and people we're going to name in the outfield, I think spending down a third on the three names we mentioned are great. It's a great route to take tonight.
Yep. All right, let's move on to shortstop. For me, the top shortstop is Travis Story. This is a guy that hits left-handed pitching really well. He's 4 for 8 in his career against Newcomb. Now, I know Newcomb, I think he shut out the Rockies in an earlier start this year, but for me, Story and his history against left-handed pitching is still what I'm looking at. And he's actually hit, well overall this year, 289 average, 25 homers, but against lefties, 316 average and 1,000 OPS. So I think Story is my top shortstop today.
Yeah, and it's him, and then it's Lindor, like you mentioned before. Lindor is he has those monster games where he hits a home run and steals 2 bases, and then he goes 0 for 5 the next game. So I think Story is the top play, followed by Lindor. But how about both Rangers guys, Jurickson Profar and Elvis Andrus? I mean, I keep reverting back to this game, but the total is too juicy, along with like the atrocious pitching options that both teams are throwing out. Profar homered yesterday, back-to-back multi-hit games, 3 extra base hits in those 2 games. Weirdly, is a first baseman over on FanDuel.
Really?
Yeah, he's been playing there, so they have him at first, but he's shortstop eligible and third on DraftKings. And I mean, Elvis Andrus, he slowed down a bit lately, but he's had a really good month of August. So I think both of those guys are really good mid-tier. I mean, Profar is pretty expensive on DraftKings, but he's really fairly priced on FanDuel.
Yep, and let's get to 2 value plays. First off, my favorite value shortstop whenever he's facing a lefty is Ahir Adrianza over in Minnesota. Against lefties this year, hitting 290 with a 755 OPS. This is really where you're going to save some money, I think, tonight. I know we talked about value at third base, but I'd rather pay up for Jose Ramirez than what we have tonight at shortstop. So pay down at shortstop. I think there's 2 good spots here. Adrianza, I think, is 2,800. I saw him at. Yep, 2,800 on DraftKings, mint price over on FanDuel. And then a guy that I mentioned on the live stream when you got cut out. So I'm gonna get him in here, but I'm terrible at pronouncing his name. Aidini Hechavarria, I think, is pretty close.
You're one of 2. The last name was spot on. The last name was spot on.
Okay, I'll go 1 for 2. 500 is a great batting average, so that works for me. Not only is he hitting left-handed pitching really well this season, but he's also had very good success against Cole Hamels when they were both in the NL East. He's 11 for 31 with 2 triples and a double and 5 RBI off of Hamels. That's a 355 batting average. And then against left-handed pitching this season, he's hitting 359 with an 832 OPS. So, this is a guy I think that you can certainly play tonight against, Hamels. I like Hamels, but, if you're trying to save some money, those are 2 value shortstop plays.
Where was his bat in Miami? Like, where he couldn't hit a lick.
Yeah,
he couldn't hit anything in Miami. Now, I mean, he better pay this off because I messed up last time by getting cut out and ruining your value call. So
I had Jordy Mercer and him, and they both went off, and I
lined up, and I ruined it.
Yeah, they both went off in that game against the Giants. That's fine. Let's move on to the outfield before we wrap this up. For me, it's Red Sox outfield. I'm not being a homer here. They just absolutely rake against right-handed pitching, and I know that the Rays are going to go by their bullpen by committee here, but they're starting it ready at least to begin the game. But they also absolutely rake at home this season. I think they have like the second best run scored aside from a fourth best in runs now at home. Again, that's 57 games played. All the teams above him in the rankings have played more games at home, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there. But they have the number 1 batting average at home this season and the number 1 OPS at home this season. The Red Sox play better at home than the Rockies are playing in Coors. So for me, JD Martinez, Mookie Betts, Andrew Benintendi, any of the three are perfectly fine with me. JD Martinez this year at home and against righties has been otherworldly. So yeah, for me, lock and load those three guys.
Yeah, and it's probably JD over the others, right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
he's been 410 with a 1300 OPS or so in his last 10 games. And those are the numbers we've been seeing all year. So that's like
no flukes.
I think if you're going with a little weather game, I think Bryce Harper, like you mentioned, Dan Shirley, he's only 2 for 16 off Dan Shirley, but you said it perfectly. It took the words right out of my mouth. We're going with the player who's been at the dish lately as opposed to what he's done against Dan Shirley in the past. I'm not really worried. I guarantee if he has like 100 more at-bats against Dan Shirley, those numbers will balance.
He should.
Even out. Yeah. And, he's been in a really good groove, hits in 7 of his last 8 games, including 4 straight, 6 RBIs in his last 4 games. And, it's good to see him getting hits, like 5 hits his last 2 games, no home runs. So the average is creeping up without just the power. And if we get the power plus, the base hits, doubles, I mean, he could be in for a monster evening tonight.
Yeah, I just went back to look at Dan Straley's numbers against this lineup. Someone we didn't mention a catcher, not to jump around too much, but Matt Wieters is 6 for 10 with 2 homers. So go back to catcher, and maybe there's a catcher play there. But no, I like Harper, like you said, recency. He's been crushing it. This is the guy that everybody had hoped they had drafted. I drafted him, and I'm in the Fantasy Alarm League, and he's been batting average just killing me all year. But glad to see it kind of up there now. If we're gonna kind of look down more towards the middle tier, who's got your eye?
So, I don't want to tout people against Robbie Ray too much because I really like Robbie Ray. But, the Padres outfield, I think just in general, probably more specifically Hunter Renfroe, 3 for 11 against them. All 3 hits have gone for home runs. Renfroe has been excellent against lefties really since he was called up. It's not just this year. And Ray, 378 WOBA against right-handed hitters this year. So, he hasn't been as dominant as we've seen him. So I think Renfroe is in a great home run spot. I know I mentioned it's in San Diego. Obviously, power is, kind of depressed in San Diego. But I think that man has so much power that he can make up for the park downgrade.
Yep, I agree with you there. I like Ohtani tonight as well. We talked about that Angels-Texas game. He's someone you can definitely have in that lineup. But Cole Calhoun has been raking right now. He's hitting .321 with 2 doubles, 4 homers, and 10 RBI during the month of August. Over the last week, he's hitting .385 with 2 home runs. And as I said earlier, who's Drew Hutchison? So in a game with 11 over-under run total and one of the safer weather games, the way Calhoun's hitting, probably going to hit leadoff. I think you can't go wrong there at his price tag.
Yeah, you can play all of them. You can literally you could just, if you're stacking and you want to be, it's going to be popular, but you could play Nomar Mazara, who came back and hit a home run last night. You could play Ohtani. You could play Chu. You can literally just mix and match every single player in this game, in this outfield. I mean, Eric Young Jr. is hitting 9th, and maybe he goes off. It's endless amount of options here. Justin Upton has been really good lately. Yeah. I think this whole outfield is just stacked.
Yep, I'm not going to argue it there. If we're going to look for some value today, James, what are we looking at?
So Curtis Granderson at Yankee Stadium has always been fun, right? As a Yankee, we saw him be an MVP caliber player for one singular season when he hit over 40 bombs. I mean, on FanDuel, he's really cheap. He's in the low 3s. We saw him hit a grand slam just the other night. I think Curtis Granderson, if we're off Lance Lynn, hitting at the top of this, right at the top of the lineup, is excellent value tonight. He's probably one of my top values. Obviously, the strikeouts are a concern, and Lance Lynn has been striking a lot of people out, so that's a little scary. But I think for a home run upside play, I think Granderson's definitely a nice value here.
Yeah, I like that. And I think another guy over on DraftKings you can get some value in the outfield is Nick Martini. He's going to hit leadoff. He's got 302 average and 860 OPS this season for them. He also, I think he doubled off Morton in their earlier matchup this season, so I think that's some good BVP. There he is, 2 for 3 with a double and 2 RBI. He's hitting 385 over the last week. Again, value play if you're going to kind of go against. And like you said, playing Oakland tonight can be contrarian given all the weather concerns. People might go to Morton because he's kind of the higher price option. So going against him, taking the leadoff hitter there and maybe throwing in Olsen and a Judd Lowry or something will be a good play.
Yeah, I'm completely down with that. I wish he was a little better in the steals department, especially as a leadoff hitter. He's not really – he doesn't steal bases. He doesn't hit for power. But, I mean, he's leading off.
He gets on and scores. Yeah.
Right, yeah. He's leading off and he hits – he's so cheap that, like, it's worth the play. It really is.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on tonight's slate, James?
I already mentioned if you got to avoid the weather, if you're scared of the weather, avoid it. If you want to be daring, play some guys in GPPs that are in weather, and you might get them at lower ownership. But other than that, everyone, good luck on tonight's massive 14-game slate, and happy Friday.
Yeah, exactly. Now, James, before we do go, I know this is a DFS baseball live stream, but it is football season as well. So draft season for fantasy football starts today. As the next few weekends are loaded with drafts, at Fantasy Line, we have you covered. Our draft guide is full of sleepers, busts, rookies, offensive line breakdowns, coaching system breakdowns, video profiles, and complete rankings. But now you get the ultimate cheat sheet for both seasonal and best ball drafts, plus 12 hours a day live chat, which James and I are always a part of, to help with any questions, even while you're drafting. Don't finish in the bottom half ever again. FantasyAlarm.com/Impemba, using promo code Impemba, IMPEMBA, it's written somewhere around here, you get 60% off. That's FantasyAlarm.com/Impemba for 60% off. The cheat sheet, draft guide, all good stuff. Fantasy football season quickly approaching here.
Boom.
Yeah. Everybody have a good Friday.